It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of August 16th, 1996. We got 6 movies to look at today, so let's go ahead and jump right on into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Kevin Costner and Rene Russo in the golf comedy Tin Cup. A nice return to form for Ron Shelton after he'd done Cobb. Before that, he had done Bull Durham and White Man Can't Jump, and then his career kind of took a little bit of a dive with Cobb, and then comes back with this, which is a fun, lighthearted romantic comedy, a fun, lighthearted sports comedy, too. But it's not one that I would say is definitely one of his best works. I mean, it's no Bull Durham, it's no White Man Can't Jump, but it's a nice little surprise. It's a nice little comedy that delivers everything you can ask for and then some. You got a really strong cast in this movie. Kevin Costner, Rene Russo. You see Cheech Marin in there as well as Don Johnson. A bunch of golfers in this movie. A bunch of cameos in this film. It's a fun little golf film. It doesn't do anything that really is amazing or anything too spectacular, but it's a breezy, lighthearted comedy. It's a fun little film that shows off what Kevin Costner his range as an actor can really be, and he has some good chemistry with Rene Russo, and the writing overall is very solid. It doesn't have that sharp, witty satirical element to it that something like Bull Durham and White Man Can't Jump have, but it does more than enough to serve as a satisfyingly enjoyable film. I really enjoyed this film a whole lot. It's not one of his best films as a filmmaker, but it certainly is a nice return for Ron Shelton after what happened with Cobb and his attempt to try to do something a little bit differently that didn't actually end up working out as well here. It works well enough here to recommend it. I think it is a very solid film. It doesn't do anything too crazy or anything too spectacular, but what it does is more than enough to satisfy it as an enjoyable movie. If you like these type of films, you'll definitely enjoy Tin Cup a lot. So that's Tin Cup. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next movie, and that is Robert De Niro and Wesley Snipes in Tony Scott's The Fan. You know, the interesting thing is that 15 years prior to this movie coming out, there actually was another movie called The Fan, very similar to this movie, except with a notable difference being in the story that instead of it being a sports athlete being harassed by a crazed fan, it was a Hollywood actress being harassed by a crazed fan, the crazed fan being played by Michael Biehn, and the actress being played by Lauren Bacall, and it's pretty much, it almost kind of follows a little bit of the similar pattern to it. Almost you could say that this movie was kind of taking from that. But then again, this is based off of a novel of the same name. But the big difference between that Fan is that that movie is a much better film overall. I think the performances in the 81 Fan work a whole lot better than they do in this movie here. You never really buy Robert De Niro as a legitimate threat in this movie. You never really buy his storyline in this film, and I really don't think I think that's one of the major problems with the film. I think really that's one of the major flaws of it, because you can't really buy the performances in here. I mean, Robert De Niro can play menacing. We've seen it do it well time and time again, but in here, it just feels like he's kind of forcing himself into the role here. And Wesley Snipes himself, too, really doesn't feel like he's fully committed to the role here. Like, you really never get a sense that he really wants to be a part of this movie. And I don't know. Tony Scott coming off of Crimson Tide, which is a phenomenal film, I think he brings a little too much of a stylized vision into this, and I think it really kind of digs itself, because most of the time in this film, you really can't tell what the hell's going on because it's way too dark. There's not enough lighting in there. You really can't get a good grasp of what's going on because sometimes you can barely see what the hell's going on. And there's just nothing about the movie that really makes it stand out on its own. I feel like there was so much more potential that they could have had with this, but it never really lives up to what it could really be with the talent that they have on board here, with the director that they have here. Everything about this movie is so primed and ready to be something amazing, and when you watch the film, you really don't get a sense of anything like that. It's a film that really does not deliver everything it promises, and it's a disappointment to say the least. I mean, if you're looking for a better film like The Fan, with the title of The Fan, just go watch the 81 film with Lauren Bacall and Michael Biehn. But other than that, though, this Fan in particular, so much potential to be something really good, but it just doesn't deliver. You can't buy the performances. It's too dark at times. Like, in terms of the cinematography, you can't really see what the hell's going on. And the mystery is not even all that interesting or exciting. It's a really lackluster type of a film. It's a real disappointment, to say the least. So with that said, on to the next movie, and that is Alaska. Yeah, pay no attention to the fact that the kid in this movie is a pain in the ass, and also that the villain in this movie is not really all that intimidating, and that it gets really, really dark at times because man, that trailer is completely misleading to what actually happens in the movie. And I wasn't kidding around. Vincent Kartheiser, who we all know from Mad Men nowadays, he's a pain in the ass in this movie. Like there's no redeemable factors to this character at all in this movie. Like you hate him the moment he comes on screen, and the fact that you just hate him all throughout the film. There's nothing likable about this character whatsoever. The Thora Birch, she's doing a pretty good job in here. Charlton Heston playing the villain in here. I mean, it's not a good villain at all, and like he is like this feels like a film that you expect a whole lot better from Heston, and especially when you consider that this is directed by his son, and he really is not that good in here. You're mostly the only thing you really like about this person is that the fact that the way he says the word bear in this movie, it's just like that's the only real thing you take away from it. And like I said before, this thing gets dark at times. Like there's moments where this little baby polar bear is next to his mother, and then you realize that the mother's been killed, and this is just somebody wearing her fur and all that. It's just like there's nothing interesting about, there's nothing great about that at all, or funny, or it's just really disturbing. This is a really messed up movie when you really think about it, and that trailer really is misleading you on so many levels. It's just like this is not a good movie. This is a terrible, terrible movie. This is a really horrible film that just wants to paint itself as the next great family adventure film, a la Disney, like what they did back in the olden days. But no, it's anything but that. And if you've seen the movie, you definitely know what the hell I'm talking about. This is not a good film at all. Alaska. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next movie, that a film that's well intended to be dark and gritty and sometimes uncomfortable for a good reason. It's Tales from the Crypt presents Bordello of Blood. Yeah, I hope you like Dennis Miller's puns in this movie because they're all over the place. And I like Dennis Miller, but man, if I want to hear puns in a Tales from the Crypt movie, you better put the Crypt Keeper back up on screen. I mean, man, like that trailer, that is all that Dennis Miller does in this movie. And like I said, I like Dennis Miller, but man, there are so many moments in this movie where he's just shouting out nothing but puns, and it's not funny at all. And I like this movie. I really do like this film. I do like that it does carry a lot of the same elements that I really liked about Demon Knight. I do like a lot of the other elements to the film. I think everybody else in the film is really good. Erica Eleniak is pretty good in here. You got Chris Sarandon and Corey Feldman, Angie Everhart playing the leader of the Bordello. I mean, there is a lot of good stuff in this movie that does work, but you really have to just eke through some of the really bad puns that Dennis Miller is forced to do in this film. Like, I really can't believe that he was actually given the opportunity to do all that, and at least let him do something a little bit funnier than what he has to do in this film. But yeah, man, the movie is still a ton of fun. It's definitely no Demon Knight. There aren't any performances that come close to some of the over-the-top performances that, like there's no Billy Zane in this movie. Although Angie Everhart does try her best in here to have some of those moments in here, but like I said, she's okay. She's pretty good in the film. Everybody else in this movie is pretty fun to watch. You do have to go through some really bad moments with Dennis Miller, and yeah, it's a film that's definitely not Demon Knight, but I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it out to be. I think it is. I think it still delivers just enough to really enjoy it for what it is. Like, there are still a lot of fun elements to it. Like I said, it's no Demon Knight, but it definitely is I think it is still a solidly entertaining film. It's a guilty pleasure. You could say it's a guilty pleasure film, honestly. At least in my opinion, it is. So, that's Bordello of Blood. Let's take a look at our next movie, and that is Jamie Lee Curtis and Kevin Pollak in House Arrest. Yeah, only in the 90s can you actually get away with this and think that this is a good idea. Yeah, try doing this nowadays. You would not. If the kids would have been arrested, they would have been sent to jail, and there would have been lawsuits after this, or just so many other things, man. But this is a terrible movie, man. This is another one of those movies, kind of like Alaska, that's trying to sell itself as this amazing film or this really important film, and it's anything but that. It doesn't go to the insane levels that Alaska does to try to get some entertainment value, but Everybody in this movie is completely wasted in here. There's nothing about these performances that really work at all. You have too good of a cast in here. Pollock, Curtis, Christopher McDonald, Wallace Shawn, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Jennifer Tilly, Ray Walston, Daniel Roebuck, Colin Camp, Ben Stein. I mean, there's a lot of good talent in here, but it just doesn't feel like a good film that was really intended for it to be something more than just something to kill some time, put it in theaters so kids can watch it, and it'll shut the kids up for a little bit. It's a very bad film. It's not a clever film at all. It's not an enjoyable film whatsoever. It's a really bad film. I really don't think I have any more to say about this movie. It's a film that just doesn't work. It's not funny. It's not clever. It doesn't really have a good message around it. It doesn't really feel like it's doing anything amazing or anything. It just doesn't work as a movie. It's not enjoyable at all. It's a boring film. Need I say more? It's house arrest. So, on to the last movie here. That is Small Faces. So as you see, you're following three teenage brothers who are growing up with their mother in Glasgow in 1968. Events which will have consequences for all concerned start to spiral out of control when Lex accidentally shoots Malky, the leader of the Garricide Tong Street gang, with an air gun. And this is pretty much all I know about the film. I've never seen it before. I don't really know too much about it, but I'm guessing it's something kind of like the Scottish equivalent of something like The Warriors, except nowhere near as dark or as intense. But I've seen a couple clips from this, and it does look pretty intense. But it's not something I really want to see. It's nothing that really piques my interest overall. It just kind of feels like a film that could have something good about it, but at least to me, it's nothing that I really want to see at this point. So, I mean, it could be good, but I just have no interest in seeing it. So, that's another quick one. Can't really say too much more about that one. Small Faces. So with that said, that wraps up another edition of Time About the Movies. When we meet next time, we've got 8 movies to look at, including the infamous The Isle of Dr. Moreau, a Very Brady sequel, Mario Van Peebles in Solo, She's the One, Carpool. We also have The Spitfire Grill, Foxfire, and Freeway. So 8 movies overall to look at on the next episode, and we'll delve into those next time. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.